The massive alien ship drifted silently beside the human exploration vessel Endeavour. Dr. Jiwoo Park pressed her face against the observation window, watching as strange lights pulsed across the alien hull. After 3 months of deep space exploration, this was their first encounter with intelligent life beyond Earth. "Are you ready for this?" Captain Minho Lee asked as he joined her at the window. His uniform was crisp, but Jiwoo could see the tension in his shoulders. They both knew this moment would change everything for humanity. "As ready as anyone can be for first contact," Jiwoo replied, clutching her data pad. As the ship's xenobiologist, she would be responsible for analyzing any biological samples the aliens might share. Her hands trembled slightly with excitement and fear. The alien delegation boarded through the main docking bay. Jiwoo gasped when she saw them. There were 6 different species, each more strange and beautiful than the last. One looked like a walking tree with silver bark. Another resembled a crystalline spider with dozens of glowing eyes. The leader appeared almost human but with blue-tinted skin and elongated limbs. "I am Ambassador Keelneth of the Galactic Confederation," the blue-skinned being spoke through a translation device. "We welcome you to the greater community of civilized worlds." Captain Minho stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "I am Captain Minho Lee representing humanity and Earth. We are honored to meet you." Over the next few hours, the aliens explained their vast civilization. The Confederation included over 200 different species spread across thousands of worlds. They had existed for millions of years, sharing knowledge and maintaining peace throughout the galaxy. "Your species is quite young," Ambassador Keelneth noted. "Most species we encounter have already achieved interstellar travel for at least 10,000 years before we make contact." Jiwoo felt both proud and small. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Compared to these ancient civilizations, they were like newborn children. As part of the first contact protocols, the aliens requested biological samples from the human crew. Jiwoo provided hair, saliva, and blood samples, while the aliens offered their own genetic material for study. This was standard practice, they explained, to ensure compatibility and prevent any biological contamination. That night, Jiwoo worked late in her laboratory, analyzing the alien samples. The genetic structures were fascinating, unlike anything she had ever seen. Some used silicon instead of carbon as their base element. Others had completely different DNA structures altogether. But when she began analyzing the human samples alongside the alien ones, something strange appeared on her screens. She ran the analysis 3 more times, thinking she had made an error. Each time the results were the same. "This can't be right," she whispered to herself, staring at the genetic comparison charts. Every alien species in the Confederation shared certain common genetic markers. These markers appeared to be artificially placed, like a signature written into their very DNA. But humans had something different. Their genetic code contained what appeared to be the original template from which all these other markers were derived. More disturbing was what the human genome contained that the others did not. There were entire sections of dormant genetic code that seemed to be blocked or suppressed in the alien samples. It was as if someone had taken the human template and deliberately removed certain capabilities before creating the other species. Jiwoo spent 3 days verifying her findings before she finally approached Captain Minho. She found him in his quarters, reading reports from Earth. "Captain, I need to show you something important," she said, her voice shaking. Minho looked up from his tablet. "What is it, Jiwoo? You look like you've seen a ghost." "It's about the genetic analysis. The results don't make sense, but I've checked them dozens of times." She handed him her data pad. "Look at this comparison." Minho studied the genetic charts, though he clearly didn't understand the technical details. "What am I looking at?" "Every species in the Confederation has modified DNA. Artificial limitations built right into their genetic structure. But humans don't have these limitations. In fact, our DNA appears to be the original template that all the others were copied from." The captain's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that either we're the ancestors of every intelligent species in the galaxy, which is impossible given the timeline, or someone used our genetic pattern as the blueprint for creating all other life forms. And when they did it, they deliberately made the copies weaker." Before Minho could respond, the ship's communication system activated. Ambassador Keelneth's voice filled the room. "Captain Lee, we request your immediate presence in the main conference room. Bring Dr. Park with you. There are matters we must discuss urgently." Jiwoo and Minho exchanged worried glances. The timing seemed too coincidental. They found the alien delegation waiting in the conference room, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Where before there had been warmth and welcome, now there was tension and fear in the air. The crystalline spider being's eyes flickered rapidly, while the tree-like alien's silver bark had darkened to almost black. Ambassador Keelneth stood as they entered. Dr. Park, we have reviewed your genetic analysis. Your findings have created quite a stir among our people. I don't understand, Jiwoo said. Have I made an error? No error, a new voice said from the shadows. An ancient being stepped forward, unlike any of the others. It seemed to be made of living stone, with eyes that glowed like stars. I am Keeper Zalthara. I have lived for over 1 million of your years. I had hoped this day would never come. The ancient being looked directly at Jiwoo and Minho. You have discovered the truth that we have hidden for eons. Humanity is not just another species. You are the first template. The original design from which all other intelligent life was created. And unlike the rest of us, you were made without limits. Keeper Zalthara's glowing eyes dimmed as the ancient being began to speak. The conference room fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Jiwoo could feel her heart beating fast as she waited to hear the truth that had been hidden for millions of years. Long ago, before your son was even born, there existed a race we called the Architects, Zalthara said slowly. They were the most advanced beings the galaxy had ever known. They could create life itself from nothing but energy and will. Captain Minho leaned forward in his chair. What happened to them? They transcended physical existence, the ancient keeper replied. But before they left our dimension, they decided to fill the empty galaxy with intelligent life. They spent thousands of years designing the perfect template for sentient beings. Jiwoo watched as Zalthara gestured with one massive stone hand. The air above the table shimmered, and suddenly they were surrounded by holographic images. She gasped as she saw a beautiful blue-green world that looked remarkably like Earth. This was their greatest laboratory, Zalthara continued. A world they prepared specifically for their masterwork. They called their creation the first template, and they gave it everything they believed intelligent life should possess. Unlimited potential for growth. No built-in restrictions on intelligence or creativity. The ability to adapt to any environment or situation. The hologram changed, showing tall, graceful beings walking through cities of crystal and light. Jiwoo's breath caught in her throat. The beings looked almost exactly like humans, just slightly taller and more elegant. These were your true ancestors, Zalthara said. The original humans, created by the architects themselves. They were perfect in every way the architects could imagine. Ambassador Keelneth shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His blue skin had turned a darker shade, and his elongated fingers drummed nervously on the table. Tell them the rest, he said quietly. Zalthara nodded sadly. The architects were pleased with their creation, but they realized they had made beings who might one day surpass even their own power. This did not frighten them, for they were wise and benevolent. But they also knew that such perfect beings might become lonely in an empty galaxy. The hologram showed the original human world from space, beautiful and blue against the star-filled void. So the architects decided to seed the galaxy with other intelligent species. But they faced a problem. If they made more beings exactly like humans, there would be competition and conflict. Too many perfect species might destroy each other in their struggle for dominance. Jiwoo began to understand where this story was leading. So they made the others different, she said. Not just different, Zalthara replied. Limited. Each new species was given wonderful gifts, but also restrictions that would prevent them from becoming too powerful. My people, the Eternal Watchers, were given incredible longevity and wisdom, but we reproduce very slowly and have limited creativity. The Valkyrie became master engineers, but they cannot think beyond logical patterns. The hologram changed again, showing dozens of different alien worlds and species. Jiwoo recognized some of them from the Confederation delegation. The Kethmari were made to be perfect warriors, Zalthara continued, but they struggle with complex emotions and abstract thinking. The Zephlon became natural telepaths, but they depend entirely on hive minds and cannot function as individuals. Every species was given a role to play, but also boundaries they cannot cross. Captain Minho stood up and began pacing around the table. But why? If the architects were so advanced, why create flawed beings? Because they intended for humanity to guide and help the others, Zalthara explained. Humans were designed to be teachers, leaders, and protectors for all the limited species. You were meant to help each species transcend their boundaries when the time was right. The ancient being paused, and its glowing eyes became very bright. But something went wrong. A great catastrophe struck the original human world. We never learned exactly what happened, but the entire planet was destroyed. Every original human died and their technology was lost. Jiwoo felt tears forming in her eyes as she watched the hologram show a beautiful world cracking apart and burning. The architects had already departed for their higher dimension, Zalthara continued. They could not return to help. The galaxy was left with dozens of limited species and no one to guide them. We formed the Confederation to maintain peace, but we always knew we were incomplete. But some humans survived, Ambassador Keelneth said. Somehow, somewhere, a group of your ancestors escaped the destruction. They must have fled to a distant world, lost their technology and started over from nothing. The hologram now showed a primitive blue world with early humans living in caves and using simple tools. Jiwoo realized she was looking at Earth's ancient history. Your people forgot their true origin, Zalthara said. You spent millions of years redeveloping technology and civilization from scratch. But the genetic template remained perfect and unchanged. When you finally achieved space flight and found us, the truth could no longer be hidden. Dr. Hyejin Kim, who had been quietly taking notes throughout the presentation, finally spoke up. The dormant genetic sequences I found in our DNA, those are the original gifts from the architects? Exactly, Zalthara confirmed. Your species still carries the potential for abilities that we limited species can only dream of. Enhanced intelligence, rapid adaptation, intuitive understanding of complex systems, even limited regenerative abilities. These gifts are sleeping in your genetic code, waiting to be awakened. The conference room fell silent as the humans absorbed this incredible revelation. They were not just another species joining a galactic community. They were the missing piece that the entire galaxy had been waiting for millions of years. But Jiwoo could see fear in the alien faces around the table. If humans were truly unlimited, what would that mean for the rest of the Confederation? 3 weeks had passed since the shocking revelation about humanity's true origin. The Endeavour now orbited a Confederation space station called Haven 7, where human refugees from Earth had been gathering. The news about the first template had spread quickly through both human and alien communities, creating chaos across the galaxy. Dr. Hyejin Kim walked through the station's corridors, watching as humans and aliens tried to coexist in an atmosphere thick with tension. Some aliens stared at humans with worship in their eyes, while others looked away in fear or anger. The unity of the Confederation was cracking. She found engineer So-Young Choi in the technical bay, working on a damaged alien power core. So-Young was only 25 years old, but she had an incredible talent for understanding complex machinery. Right now her face was pale and worried. Any luck with the repair? Hyejin asked, sitting down beside her younger colleague. So-Young shook her head. This technology is completely different from anything we learned on Earth. The Valkyrie engineers say it would take them 3 days to fix this power core, but we need it working in 6 hours or the life support systems will fail in Section 12. Hyejin looked at the strange crystalline device that powered the station's environmental controls. It was beautiful but completely alien, with energy patterns that seemed to flow like liquid light through transparent chambers. Maybe we should ask for help from the Confederation technicians, Hyejin suggested. I already did, So-Young replied with frustration. But half of them refuse to work with humans now. They're afraid of us. The other half want to study us like we're some kind of magical creatures. As if to prove her point, 3 Kethmari warriors walked past the technical bay. Their reptilian faces showed clear hostility as they glanced at the 2 human women. One of them hissed something in their own language, and Hyejin didn't need a translator to know it wasn't friendly. The situation is getting worse every day, So-Young said quietly. I heard that some species are demanding that humans be quarantined until they can figure out what to do with us. Before Hyejin could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red as an automated voice announced a critical system failure in the residential sections. So-Young jumped up and grabbed the power core. The backup systems are failing faster than expected. If I can't fix this in the next hour, 3,000 people will lose life support. Hyejin watched as her young colleague stared at the alien device with desperate concentration. So-Young's hands shook as she tried to understand the complex energy patterns flowing through the crystalline structure. I can't do this, So-Young whispered. I'm just a human engineer. I don't have the specialized knowledge of the Valkyrie or the intuitive understanding of the Zephlon. Yes you do, Hyejin said firmly. Remember what Keeper Zalthara told us. We carry the original template. We have abilities that the other species don't. So-Young looked up at her with tears in her eyes. But how do I access them? I don't feel any different than I did before we learned the truth. The alarms grew louder, and Hyejin could hear panicked voices echoing through the corridors. Time was running out. Close your eyes, Hyejin said suddenly. Stop trying to think like a human engineer trained on Earth technology. Try to think like someone who was designed to understand all technology. So-young looked at her like she was crazy, but she closed her eyes anyway. She placed her hands directly on the power core, ignoring the standard safety protocols that warned against direct contact. I can feel something, So-young whispered after a few moments. It's like the device is trying to tell me what's wrong with it. Hygiene watched in amazement as So-young's face changed. The worry and fear disappeared, replaced by a look of deep concentration and understanding. The young engineer's hands began moving over the power core with fluid precision, adjusting components that she shouldn't have been able to identify. The energy flow is blocked here, So-young said, her voice now calm and confident. And there's a resonance imbalance in this chamber. I can see how to fix it. Her hands moved faster now, making adjustments to the alien technology as if she had been working with it for years. The power core began to glow brighter, and the emergency alarms slowly stopped. That's impossible, a voice said from behind them. They turned to see Ambassador Keelneth standing in the doorway, his blue face filled with shock. That power core required Valkyrie Master certification to repair. No human should be able to understand it. So-young looked down at her hands in wonder. I don't know how I did it. It was like the machine was speaking to me directly, showing me what needed to be done. Over the next few days, similar incidents began happening throughout the station. Humans started displaying abilities that should have been impossible. A human doctor named Junho managed to heal a critically injured Zeflon using techniques he claimed came to him in a dream. A human linguist called Minyoung learned to speak fluent Kethmari after hearing it for only a few hours. But the most dramatic awakening happened to Captain Minho Lee himself. During a heated diplomatic meeting with Confederation leaders, he suddenly began speaking with a wisdom and authority that surprised everyone in the room. His words seemed to carry a strange power that made even the ancient keeper Zalthara listen with respect. The changes were becoming impossible to ignore. Humans were awakening to their true potential, and it was happening faster than anyone had expected. But not everyone was pleased with these developments. In the darker corners of the station, groups of aliens met in secret. The Kethmari formed war councils. The Morketh spoke of ancient weapons. Fear was turning to anger, and anger was turning to plans for action. Dr. Hygiene Kim realized that humanity's awakening was just the beginning of a much larger conflict. The galaxy was about to face a crisis that would determine the future of all intelligent life. The first attack came without warning. General Taejin Kong was reviewing supply reports in his temporary command center when the explosions began. Through the reinforced windows of Haven 7, he watched in horror as 3 human transport ships burst into flames against the star-filled darkness. Sir, we're under attack. Lieutenant Daun shouted from the communication station. Kethmari battle cruisers have opened fire on all human vessels in the system. Taejin had been expecting this moment for weeks. Ever since humans began displaying their awakened abilities, tensions had grown worse each day. The Confederation was splitting apart, with some species terrified of human potential while others demanded they be studied or controlled. Get me Captain Minho immediately, Taejin ordered. And start emergency evacuation procedures for all human civilians. The next few hours were chaos. Kethmari forces, supported by the militant Morketh Alliance, launched coordinated attacks on human settlements across 12 different star systems. They had clearly been planning this assault for months, waiting for the right moment to strike. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated what awakened humans could do when fighting for their survival. On the agricultural world of New Terra, Farmer Kyung-soo found himself face to face with Kethmari shock troops. He had never been a soldier, but when the reptilian warriors threatened his family, something activated deep in his genetic code. His reflexes became impossibly fast, his strength increased dramatically, and his tactical thinking sharpened to an almost supernatural level. Within hours, Kyung-soo had organized the human colonists into an effective resistance force. Using nothing but farming equipment and improvised weapons, they managed to hold off a full Kethmari battalion until Confederation reinforcements arrived. Similar stories emerged from every human settlement under attack. Dr. So-young Choi, now stationed on the research outpost Harmony Station, single-handedly disabled an entire Morketh battle cruiser by somehow interfacing directly with their computer systems. She couldn't explain how she did it, only that the ship's technology had seemed as simple to understand as a basic calculator. But the most surprising development came from the aliens themselves. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, The local Velkari population refused to obey Confederation orders to surrender all humans to Kethmari forces. Instead, they joined the human miners in defending their shared home. "We have worked alongside these humans for 3 years," explained Velkari engineer Thoktal to the Confederation investigators. "We have seen their character. They are not conquerors or destroyers. They are builders and protectors." The rebellion spread faster than anyone had predicted. The gentle Zephlon telepaths began sharing disturbing visions of what would happen if humans were destroyed or enslaved. The ancient Watchers, led by Keeper Zalthara, openly declared their support for humanity's right to exist freely. General Tejin established his main headquarters on the fortress world of Gibraltar Station, deep in neutral space. From there, he coordinated the growing human resistance with the help of their alien allies. But he knew they needed more than just military victories to win this war. "We need to find the architect facility that Keeper Zalthara mentioned," he told Dr. Hyjin Kim during a strategy meeting. "If there's technology or information there that can help us understand our abilities better, we need it now." Hyjin had been studying ancient star charts and Confederation historical records for weeks. "I think I've found it," she said, pointing to a remote system on the holographic display. "The Epsilon Eridani system, 4th planet. It matches all the descriptions from the ancient texts." The planet was deep in contested space, surrounded by Kethmari patrols and automated defense systems. But Captain Minho volunteered to lead a small team through the blockade using a captured alien stealth ship. The journey took 5 days through hyperspace, dodging enemy patrols and navigating through asteroid fields. When they finally reached the mysterious 4th planet, they found something that took their breath away. The entire world was covered in structures that seemed to be grown rather than built. Crystalline towers reached toward the sky like frozen trees, connected by bridges of pure energy. At the center of the largest continent stood a massive pyramid that pulsed with soft, welcoming light. "The readings are incredible," So Young reported from the ship's sensor station. "The entire planet is one enormous computer system. And it's still active after all these millions of years." When they landed near the pyramid, something amazing happened. The ancient doors opened by themselves, as if the facility recognized their presence. Inside, they found chambers filled with floating holographic displays and walls covered in strange symbols that somehow seemed familiar. Dr. Hyjin approached one of the central displays and gasped as it activated at her touch. Suddenly, the chamber filled with the image of a being unlike anything they had ever seen. It was tall and elegant, with features that were clearly the original template for human appearance, but perfected beyond anything nature could achieve. "Greetings, children of the first template," the holographic figure spoke in perfect Korean, though its lips moved in a different pattern. "I am Constructor Veltheros, one of the architects who created your lineage. If you are seeing this message, then you have awakened to your true potential, and the galaxy faces a time of great change." The architect's image gestured, and new displays appeared around the chamber, showing detailed information about human genetic capabilities, advanced technologies, and most importantly, the original plan for galactic civilization. "We designed you not as conquerors but as teachers and guides," the architect continued. "Your awakened abilities are not weapons of domination, but tools for helping all intelligent life transcend the limitations we placed upon them. The time has come to fulfill your true purpose." As the message continued, Hyjin realized they had found far more than just ancient technology. They had discovered humanity's destiny, and perhaps the key to ending the war that was tearing the galaxy apart. The final battle began above the skies of New Earth, humanity's largest colony world. General Taejin Kong watched from the bridge of the human flagship Unity as over 300 Kethmari warships emerged from hyperspace. Behind them came the combined fleets of 6 other hostile species, all united in their determination to destroy or enslave humanity. "Sir, they're demanding our immediate surrender," Communications Officer Doon reported. "Admiral Esikatar says humans are too dangerous to exist freely in the galaxy." Taejin looked at the massive enemy fleet through the viewscreen. His own forces numbered barely 50 ships, cobbled together from various human colonies and their alien allies. By any military calculation, they were about to be completely destroyed. But everything had changed since their discovery of the architect facility. Dr. Hyjin Kim stood beside him, her eyes glowing with a soft light that had appeared after she interfaced with the ancient technology. In her hands, she carried a small crystalline device that contained the consciousness patterns of Constructor Veltheros. "Are you ready?" Taejin asked her quietly. Hyjin nodded. "The architect has shown me what we need to do. But Taejin, this isn't about winning a war anymore. This is about fulfilling our true purpose." The enemy fleet opened fire, sending thousands of energy beams and missiles toward the human ships. But something extraordinary happened. Captain Minho Lee, commanding the escort vessel Harmony, somehow managed to predict every enemy movement. His ship danced between the attacks as if he could see the future. On the engineering vessel Discovery, So Young Choi interfaced directly with the ship's systems, boosting their defensive shields to impossible levels. Throughout the human fleet, crews began displaying abilities that defied explanation. Gunners hit targets they couldn't possibly see. Engineers repaired battle damage almost instantly. Pilots flew their ships like extensions of their own bodies. But Hygiene wasn't focused on the battle. She was reaching out with her mind, enhanced by the architect's knowledge, to every human in the fleet. Through their awakened genetic connections, she began sharing something that had never been attempted before. My fellow humans, her voice echoed not through the communication systems, but directly into their consciousness. We were not created to be conquerors. We were designed to be liberators. The crystalline device in her hands pulsed with brilliant light. Ancient architect technology, dormant for millions of years, began to activate throughout human space. On New Earth below, massive towers that had been mistaken for natural crystal formations suddenly came alive with energy. Admiral S.E. Katar's voice crackled over the communication channels. Surrender now, humans. You cannot win against the combined might of the Confederation. But instead of responding with weapons, Hygiene did something unexpected. She opened a direct communication channel to every ship in the enemy fleet. Her image appeared on their view screens, and when she spoke, her words carried the power and wisdom of the architects themselves. We offer you something that your species have never experienced, she said calmly. Freedom from the limitations that were built into your genetic code. The architects didn't create you as lesser beings. They created you as protected beings, waiting for the right time to grow beyond your boundaries. On the Kethmari flagship, Admiral S.E. Katar laughed harshly. Human tricks and lies. We know what you truly are, a threat to be eliminated. But throughout the enemy fleet, something strange began to happen. The Zephlon telepods in the Allied ships started receiving visions of what life could be like without their mandatory hive mind connections. Velkari engineers saw glimpses of creativity beyond pure logic. Even some Kethmari warriors felt emotions they had never experienced before. Dr. Junho Park, now serving as the fleet's chief medical officer, worked with alien volunteers who had agreed to undergo the transformation process. Using a combination of human genetic material and architect technology, he began removing the artificial limitations from willing subjects. The first volunteer was a young Velkari engineer named Tokval who had been working alongside humans for months. As the genetic barriers in his mind dissolved, his eyes widened with wonder. For the first time in his life, he could imagine things that had never existed before. He could feel emotions beyond simple duty and logic. This is incredible, Tokval whispered. I can see colors I never knew existed. I can think thoughts that were impossible before. Word of the transformation spread quickly through both fleets. More and more alien crew members requested to undergo the process, even as the battle continued around them. The Kethmari commanders tried to maintain discipline, but their own soldiers were beginning to question orders they had followed without thinking for their entire lives. On the surface of New Earth, civilian humans worked together to activate more architect facilities. Each tower that came online sent out waves of energy that gently offered transformation to any alien who was ready to accept it. The process was completely voluntary, no one was forced to change. Captain Minho established communication with Keeper Zalthara, who had been watching the battle from a neutral observation ship. The ancient being's stone features showed something that might have been hope. Is this truly possible? Zalthara asked. Can the limitations really be removed without causing harm? The architects designed the system to work this way, Hygiene explained. They always intended for all species to eventually transcend their boundaries. They just needed us to mature enough to guide the process safely. The battle gradually transformed into something else entirely. Ships that had been exchanging fire moments before now worked together to facilitate more transformations. Former enemies became allies as they experienced expanded consciousness for the first time. Admiral S.E. Katar's fleet began to fracture as more of his crews chose transformation over conflict. Within hours, the Great War was ending not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. Dr. Hygiene Kim stood before the Council of the New Confederation 6 months later, representing a galaxy that had been forever changed. Humans had found their cosmic purpose not as rulers, but as guides helping all life reach its full potential.